Hello and welcome back to Sim.bc, my daily dose of complaining about other people and boasting my own ego. It is 13:25, so just 5 to half past 1. Is that how you say it? 5 to half past? I think I've had this discussion before with myself. Gotta Google that. Anyway, starting out with a quick tip. If you're ever gonna buy a baguette in France, buy it either around 12:1 because then it's lunch, or in the morning because then it's breakfast and people are going out and buying them because they're so much better. They go stale so fast. I mean, it's scary how quickly they go stale. I mean, seriously, sometimes I've been buying baguettes at like 5, 6 in the evening, and they're rock hard. You can like hit someone with them and kill them. They're like a phone. You can't eat a phone. It's too hard. Anyway, so that's my personal tip. If you're ever gonna buy a baguette in France, do it like around lunchtime or around breakfast time because they're so much better. I mean, it's really no comparison. They're really good. Anyway, so what am I talking about today? Well, yesterday I had two different things that happened that was awesome. Oh, well, not awesome, but kind of nice in a way for me, but for my team it wasn't. Anyway, starting with the funny, or rather the good thing. We had two more personality tests yesterday. Yay! We did the I don't know what it's called, but I know it's NT ENTPJ ENTPPT something like that is called. Basically, you're answering like between, depends on how much you're going into it, between I think it is 32 and 250 questions, and then you get put into a category that will determine your personality, if you're an extrovert, an introvert, what job positions you should have, and so on and so forth. And I got a ENTJ, and I've done that quiz before, and I got an ENTP dash T, but the dash wasn't in here this time. Anyway, so I felt kind of good about myself that I got the same kind of result. The only problem is that I got a J instead of a P, which basically means you're a judging person now, or I judge more now than I did before, apparently, according to this test. We did it rather quickly as well. So keep that in mind, but still. My job positions was my future job positions was that you're probably going to lead in middle or high management, and you're naturally inclined to wanting to take responsibility, which I thought was awesome. And then we did another test as well directly after that. So we were warmed up, so to say. We were in the flow, and we did the Big Five test, or the Big Five personality test, which is basically you get openness, you get consciousness, you get something on N that I can't pronounce yet and can't remember, but it's basically how stressed you are and depression. Yeah, it sounds awesome, doesn't it? You get awareness and you get something else. The thing is, I have it on my phone. Anyway, I can go through starting with it. Oh yeah, E as well for extrovert. And so you get like a percentage on how high you are, and I would say it's more like a spectrum. So like you always get the same. You always get O, or you never get like unopen, but you get openness. But then you get a percentage on how open you are from between 0 and 100%. And I got you are highly open to experiences, which basically means I'm creative, imaginative, adventurous, intellectual, unconventional, and artistically inclined. I thought that was awesome because that's kind of how I feel that I am. But then I also scored really high, and I got 85% on it. And then I scored really high on consciousness as well, very high, and 95%, which is basically I'm orderly, dependable, hardworking, and cautious. And apparently, these two categories normally doesn't mix. As I said, we did this quite quickly, pretty fast, so there might be some wrong errors in there, wrongdoings. But I'm pretty happy with my result, even though, as I said, my teacher said, well, basically, most of the time, the people who are cautious, they are not very open because they like routines. And the people who are open, they are usually not cautious. And I scored really high on both of them. So I'm like, am I superhuman? No, no, okay, no. But that also probably inclines with something that, or aligns with something that happened later in the test as well, which I can draw a conclusion from. And then you are highly extroverted, according to this, which I don't feel like I am at all. I'm not an extrovert, at least not in my own mind. I see myself as an introvert. I gain energy by being alone. Anyway, got this on the other test too. They were like, "Yeah, you're an extrovert," and I'm like, "No, I'm not." Yeah, friendly, courageous, adventurous, enthusiastic, and ambitious. Well, let's see how that turns out. Ambitious, I can agree with. You are low in agreeableness, which basically means people who are low in agreeableness tend to experience less empathy and put their own concerns ahead of others. I can totally agree with that. It's something I'm working on though, so don't bear with me. Yet again, I asked my team about this later, and they were like, "No, we feel like you put your own, or you put our interest in front of your own, and you really want us to, you know, to do well." And I was like, "It's so awesome that they feel like that, because I don't feel like I'm doing that." But it's amazing to see that they have a totally different perception of me than I do, which is awesome. But then I scored really high on neuroticism, the N, which 70%, which basically means people high in neuroticism are also more likely to doubt themselves and their abilities. They often feel personally responsible for their own bad luck and feel a sense of shame when things don't turn out the way they like. And this was also connected with, yeah, you're pretty depressed probably. No, not depressed really, but like you're having you easily feel stress and you feel a lot of bad thoughts. You often feel blue and feel down in the dumps in your spare time. And I can, if I draw a conclusion and analyze this, I can see that if I'm highly conscious and highly open, those two, when they fight with each other, let's say, when they clash, will create a kind of not shameful behavior, but a behavior that contradicts each other. So, for instance, if I love to have working routines, for instance, that makes me feel good, and I'm a person of habits. I love having habits. It's like the dream for me. Love working as long as I'm doing kind of the same thing all the time. But at the same time, I don't like doing the same thing all the time. I love having habits, but I like doing new things. Now, what does that mean? I would like doing, well, this is how I would like to explain it. I would like going to work and have a designated time where I will work. For instance, I will work an hour and then I have a break for 15 minutes, and then I will work 3 hours and then I will have a break for 15 minutes, and then I will work an hour and then I will have lunch. But what I do at that work can be vastly different. That's how I feel. For instance, when I came home yesterday, I planned to play the guitar and would sing a bit, which I did. But what I sang and what I played was all up to choice, and how I played and how I sang. It's like that's how I explain myself. And I think I've said this before, but I'm planning so that I can have spontaneous. I'm planning in the spontaneous things. So I do this, I do that, and then I have a moment here when I can do whatever I want, where I can be spontaneous, and then I planning the next thing again. So this is how long the spontaneous thing can take. I think I mentioned that before, especially before I went to Barcelona, because that was such a classical me thing that I planned around that to be spontaneous. Anyway, so I thought that this was really interesting. When I consulted my group, they were like, "Yeah, this is kind of right, but this is wrong, and this is good. We wouldn't see you in this light, and blah 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 blah." So it was interesting to see their perspective too. And in both of these personality tests, they were like, "Yeah, you're in high management, middle management at worst, but you should probably be in top management, be solving all the problems, realize where we're going. You have such an open mind and open way of thinking," which was which I thought was amazing. I was like, really, this is how I feel too. Not necessarily that I felt, that I aligned myself with all of the things that were shown to me, but I totally feel like I would feel at home in top management. But now, yet again, 90% of all the people in the world probably does that. But I feel like I actually have something to offer them if I'm there. If this isn't an ego boast. But it's not only an ego boast for me, this is also a part where I complain about others. And what better thing to complain now than my team? Because we got some feedback we got some feedback on our latest hand-in, and there was one guy who wasn't there. Who was at the dentist, I think. Anyway, shouldn't say him by name, but that probably defines him to anyone who watches and knows who I'm talking about. Anyway, um, he was at the dentist, and the teacher came to us, and she was like, "Yeah, so what you handed in is all good, except for this part." And I was like, "And he's not here." So we had to sit there and take all the crap from things that he wouldn't do, that he hadn't done, which was basically the financial statements in our little theoretical corporation, which I'm doing now. I'm doing all the financial statements, but the teacher also asked us like, who is responsible for this? And I saw that the other people, they were like starting to form a sentence, and they were like, it is actually, and I was like interrupting them and saying like, no, we're a team. We all had the responsibility of looking through this before we handed it in. It's our fault, and that's really how I feel, because when we looked through it, his income statement and his balance sheet and his cash flow statement, they all sucked. I mean, really, they were really bad. They were like revenue. His income statement was basically revenue, tax. He didn't even have like a gross income or a final income or a net income. It was just like income, tax, and those was wrong as well. And then the balance sheet was totally out of whack. They weren't balanced to begin with. And the cash flow statement ended up with us having negative cash, even though we didn't have any cash yet, which we could do. Totally, we could have be forced to pay off some assets. That's cash going away, but we don't have any assets yet. But we should think that we have. But yeah, it was still like very unrealistic numbers and weird. It was something like we were minus 600,000 euro or something in the first month, and I was like, no, dude, no, we're not. Seriously. So it was all weird. But anyway, he's probably learning from this experience, and we will take this up with him next time. And maybe he's just bad at doing financial statements. Who am I to judge? Well, I'm the team leader, so I'm there to judge. No, I'm not. I'm there to perceive and not judge, because I'm not a judging person, no matter what any personality test tells me. Well, I might be. But anyway, so I'm doing the financial statements at the moment, and they're actually pretty fun. It's a very learning experience. Like, it's a good experience for me to go through my old financial statements that I've done in other courses and actually revisit them, review them, and learn from them again. So it's all good in the end. More work for me, but it turns out great. This is something I think really will gain me in a, like, when I start working, in top management as an accountant. Well, anyway, that's all from me, mates. Have a good day.